What's up, guys? It's your host, Steven Martinez. Once again, welcome to the American Dream Podcast. I'm here with a very special guest today. I'm here with my good friend, Winn. How are you, brother?
Taking love easy, brother.
I'm happy to have you. I know I've known you for maybe 4 years now, 4 years.
4 years.
I know we met in Arizona, and I know you have a really unique story of, just you as a person, but then your trans course from your whole life. And I guess for anyone that hasn't met you or anything like that, how would you describe kind of like your lifetime?
Busy.
Yeah.
I grew up out here in West Texas. Well, first I want to say thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, man.
It's always an honor to be with you. And I started out in West Texas. Grew up a very simple life, real small upbringing. We didn't have much money. I had a full-time job and I've been working and had a full-time job since I was 7. So, and that was to help pay for groceries, bills, clothes, things like that. And then I joined long story short, joined the military and then got out of the military and got into entrepreneur and started working and built my own company. And
where were you working at when you were 7?
I did a lot of work around ranches and farms, broke horses, herded cattle, rode fences. Did a lot of work for BNF exterminating, and then did some roofing as well. I did my first roof with my dad when I was in 1st grade. So anything carpentry and anything that turned a dime, pretty much.
I know for my personal experience, I have a lot of mentors that I kind of go to for certain stuff. And I consider you a mentor as well for, just life in general and the advice you give and the mentality in terms of perseverance and overcoming obstacles. You've given me some of the best advice I could probably ask for. And I know that has to do a lot with the military side of it. So how did you get into that? What was the whole story behind that?
The military was something I always wanted to do. I had 2 uncles that were both in World War II. Oh. On my mother's side, I had my grandpa and family members that were in the Navy. On my father's side, we had Army guys. They were both infantry. One of them was with the 82nd, the other one was with a Ranger battalion. Uncle Ewell was actually a sniper, which was my favorite uncle.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a sniper. So I joined the military, became an infantryman, and then got to become a sniper, and I learned that I excelled at it, and that was kind of the start of traveling the world. Now, I've been to 36 different countries total, so wow. 28 of those are third world countries.
28 of them?
26.
Oh, wow.
I think 26. I think it should be 26, yeah.
So I have a question. So for the military side of it, you were in the Army, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the pre-qualification process, is it tough? Can anyone just become a sniper? Like, I want to be a sniper?
No.
What was that like?
No, and I've met since I've been out of the military, I've met more people that say they could have been a sniper.
Yeah.
Because they go hunting and they've never missed a deer, or they've only missed 1 out of so many shots. Shooting is only about 3% of what we do.
Okay.
That's it. It's a very, very small piece of what a sniper does. You've got to be overly patient. You have to have a very strong constitution, a very strong will, be very self-dependent, sufficient, and be able to adapt and overcome anything that comes your way.
In terms of the training, was there anything like special or anything that was abnormal in terms of the process of becoming that? Like, you see those YouTube videos of, like the Navy SEALs and all that, like they're in the ocean. Is it something like that, or?
No, not really. Being able to be invisible when it's almost impossible to be is used to. It was, I think now it's either pass or fail, but used to, if you didn't pass the stalk, you didn't make it through sniper school.
What's the stalk?
So the stalk is when you go out and you have to take up a position. And you've got a rifle that you're doing everything you're supposed to as a sniper, and there's 2 guys that are up there they're spotters. They have scopes, and then there's guys out there walking around with sticks. And they try to walk the guys in with the sticks to where you're at. But you've got to be able to get in within so many meters and take a shot and hit a target without them being able to see you, and you have to take 2 shots. So after the first shot, you've given away your location.
Wow.
So you still have to be invisible on that second shot.
And you have to shoot something that you can't even see, essentially.
Well, you can see it. It's just you're hoping they can't see you.
Okay.
So you've got to know what you're doing as far as camouflage and how the rifle is going to act, or how the terrain is going to react to the rifle and the percussion of the round going off when you squeeze the trigger. And you have to be able to keep all of that from other people seeing it. So that was a very testing time of it, but there's a lot that goes into learning how to be a sniper.
So once you go through the training, you go through all the prerequisites that requires you to be a sniper, and then you're qualified, you pass, what goes moving forward from there?
You go back to your unit. Typically, if you're in sniper school, it's because your unit has already designated you as one of their snipers. You're going to be one of their snipers. That starts off on a range usually, and they'll have you go out and you'll do qualification shoots. And if you hit 40 out of 40 consistently, or 39 out of 40 consistently, then they might look at you as a candidate. Because of your shooting skills, they might look at you as a candidate to be a sniper. Now they're going to, once they say, okay, well, he can shoot, we're going to take him and evaluate you on your physical, what are you physically capable of? What are you mentally capable of? How well do you get along with your peers, the people that work with you and around you? And if you can't get along with the people you're working with, or you're somebody who is very argumentative constantly, causing strife or problems, they're not going to do it. Snipers work in 2-man teams, or they did back then. I think now they're working in like 3 to 6.
For the mental aspect, how important is it to have a strong mentality for that specific position?
It is imperative, to say the least. You don't get... Snipers are one of the most dangerous things on a battlefield.
Yeah.
But you're also in one of the most dangerous positions on a battlefield. You work in a 2-man team. Help might not be coming for 25 or 30 minutes, and a lot happens in 60 seconds. So when it's you and one other person, then you have to be able to you've got to be grounded, be able to stay calm, cool, and collected no matter what's in front of you, or how many people are in front of you, or if you're surrounded, or what the terrain may be.
Damn. So if you're in like that specific scenario, I guess, where there's stress, there's pressure, you got bullets flying at you, I guess my question is, in that sort of moment, I think a lot of normal people complain about, and I know I've had phone calls with you, I'm like, man, I've had this and that. You're like, Bubba, let me tell you a story real quick that'll change your perspective on things. And I'm like, you know what? You're right, my problem wasn't that big. But in that scenario, I guess, how do you deal with it personally in terms of, coping with stress and all that sort?
Breathe. Literally, that's what I deal with. That's how I deal with it. I take a deep breath in, relax, kind of take a step back from where I'm sitting at and look around, kind of assess the situation, see what my options are, if they're limited or what it may be. And I try to adjust and overcome, much like playing chess. You might have a path that you're trying to go, a line that you're trying to take on a chessboard, and they move 2 or 3 pieces, and now you're shifting your pieces back to the other side. You have to constantly be able to adapt and overcome to the environment that you're in.
But having said that, your decision making is milliseconds compared to someone else.
It's different in the aspect that if you make a mistake in the business world, it might cost you some money or employees. It might cost you relationships. In that environment, it could cost you or somebody else their life. The outcome is almost instant. So there is a difference in that aspect of it.
So in terms of, I know we're going to talk about it as well, but we might as well just touch base on it. So in terms of comparing, now that you're a business owner, just having those business entrepreneurial problems, to being in that lifestyle that you were in the Army, how would you compare?
They both come with their own unique sets of problems. The way I approach the people that I work with and the people that work for me is the same. Of course, you and I have gone over my 10 things every man should have to become in life, or 10 things that men should follow in life. And it starts off with just having purpose, motivation, and direction. You wake up every day with purpose. You provide motivation to yourself and everybody else that's around you, and you give direction. But if you give direction to everybody else but not yourself, then you become stagnant. When that's going to slow your team down as the leader. You've got to be able to be firm, fair, and consistent. By firm is everybody's going to have a knucklehead or somebody that irritates them that works for them or with them.
Yeah.
You can't control who you're always working with. And you can't just fire everybody because they get on, they did something that got on your nerves that maybe you're the one having a bad day. So you got to be fair, and you got to be firm, and you got to be consistent. The big one that I like everybody to remember is just to stay calm, cool, and collected. It doesn't matter what the problem is.
Yeah.
If it's not going to cost you life, limb, or eyesight, what are you really getting mad about? I mean, it's...
And do you still apply, I guess, some of those techniques from being in the Army to the business world? Or like you mentioned breathing. Do you do that a lot? I know you said it was box breathing, right?
I do. Well, it's not really box breathing. It's... Anytime I lay down, the most comfortable place I've ever been in life is laying down behind a rifle, knowing that I'm about to take a shot. Whether it's, I'm not just even talking about just target shooting, but you have to breathe a certain way, and then you've got to get your body to relax. You're trying to get your diaphragm to relax. You're trying to get everything in harmony, because the more you touch the rifle, the more the rifle moves. Well, this isn't competition shooting, so I can't do free recoil where they set the rifle up and you look through the scope and squeeze the trigger. Doesn't work that way. I've got to be able to fire, and then I've got fractions of seconds to make adjustments and get my next round off at times.
Yeah.
Or it's just bang, 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 depending on the situation. So you're trying to get your body as relaxed and stress-free as possible. Just by breathing helps you stay calm. People that say they suffer from anxiety and depression, if you watch them, they'll have a hard time. Their breathing will change. It'll shift. It'll become shallower or faster in between the ebbs and flows of the breath. If you just practice breathing and put yourself in constant states of stress, then your body starts adapting to that, and your mind will actually adapt to that, to where you can stay calm under very stressful situations where other people would fall apart. Some people it's just natural. That's what we call a natural born leader. It's somebody who just does well under stress. You can teach others how to be a leader, but holding it together under stress is something that comes a little more natural for some rather than others.
Do you think leaders are born, or can you craft and make a leader?
You can definitely craft and make a leader. The military has perfected that. They do a great job of that. That being said, you can't really fix a coward. People that are very self-absorbed, they care more about themselves, what they want, their needs and wants, the way the world views them. They're typically not good leaders. You can't be a self-absorbed person and be a good leader. It doesn't work that way. Because a leader is always worried about and focused on the ones that depend on him or her, whoever it is, whoever the leader is. You've got to focus on, so in my businesses, my employees have families. They have kids. So if I make a bad decision and I fail them, then I'm affecting what food is being put on the table and clothes being put on the backs of their children. So it's not just your employees you're worried about, it's their wives, it's their kids, it's their families, whoever depends on them. You're taking care of each and every one of them. That's a big responsibility for anybody.
Absolutely. Well, how was the transition? So you were there for 20 years, you said? How long was it?
No. I was in the Army for right at 10 years. I've been wounded enough that after my last go around, I got hit 3 days in a row, and when I got back, they said my luck was running out, and they decided to retire me.
Okay.
So I was going to be a 30-year man. I didn't want out of the military. I was very comfortable, very happy, and really enjoyed that lifestyle, the military lifestyle. And so when I got out, it kind of threw a wrench into everything, and I took about 3 years, kind of booty-hooing, feeling sorry for myself.
And I know you're a Purple Heart recipient, correct?
I am.
So for people that don't know, what's a Purple Heart recipient medal?
We joke about, we called it a Haji marksmanship badge because they were good enough to hit me. It pretty much means you were in the wrong place at the wrong time and you got wounded.
Okay.
Whether it's an IED or getting shot, cut, stabbed, a wound that was inflicted from the enemy is what that comes from.
Okay.
That's how you get a Purple Heart.
If I'm not mistaken, you were in combat over 200 times, something like that, was it?
I've got over 680 combat missions.
Over 680?
Right.
I was way off.
It's all right.
Man, I know when we talked on the phone, you told me about, I know you don't get into too much detail, but you mentioned, things in like Afghanistan and then Africa.
Africa was cool, but that wasn't a combat zone.
Okay.
That was, we were there for training the Ugandans.
In Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you mentioned the whole civilization and how they're kind of like in a civil war.
At the time, there was warring tribes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess out of all your experiences, without going into too much detail, what was the most stressful one, or one that kind of really tested you to your limit, where you kind of had to really decide, what to do at that point?
I'd have to say OP Barila and OP East. That would be, and that was May 1st, May 2nd, and May 3rd of 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And that was by far the worst week of my life. So I made decisions, and some of my men died, and that's
And moving forward from there, I guess for a lot of people, because a lot of people deal with issues, family, personal stuff. How did you get the courage and strength to just keep moving forward with everything that was happening?
You don't have time to really, you don't have the luxury of emotion in battle. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work that way. Well, you can't. It's not even that you even don't think about it. It's just, it doesn't cross your mind. You have to keep pushing. When you're outnumbered by that many people, when somebody goes down, it's an afterthought. You have to keep pushing forward, because if you fail or you become stagnant, then you become an easy target.
You can take that same concept with life too, staying stagnant, pushing forward.
You do, but that's where a lot of soldiers come back and they have issues, because you don't deal with it while you're there. Mm-hmm. There's no grieving process. It's not like being here in America where something battle happened to you and then you get X amount of time to process it and go through it, and you have all this support. You've got tons of support over there. You've got all your battle buddies, your brothers in arms. But none of you allow each other or yourselves to get caught up in the problems that happened from decisions that were made on a battlefield. Because there's another mission. You just finished this one. You're not going to go home and take a shower and get a hot meal and spend time with your family. You're going to come back in. You're going to get a debrief. You're going to give your guys a hot meal, get them a shower if they can. You're going to repack your stuff, and then you're going back out on mission again. And then you're back out in the thick of it. So it's different as far as the aspect of emotional management. That all goes on hold in a combat zone. It's a luxury you're not afforded. You're not allowed to have that. Well, it's not saying you're not allowed to. You're allowed to. That's the wrong way to put it. You can't afford it. Mm-hmm. You've got other things to worry about.
And how was the transition, having said that, once you came back here and kind of just, pretty much you reset yourself in a sense, right? There's
no such thing as resetting yourself. Once you've lived through that kind of battle, it took me 3 years to really adjust into something that was more conducive with civilian life. Mm-hmm. I had a failed marriage during that time, and I wasn't getting to see my son much. I was turning into an alcoholic, but I'd just lost, before the deployment, I'd lost my mom and dad in a 25-day time span. We deployed. I was on a plane leaving for Afghanistan a week and a half after my dad died. My mother passed, my father passed. A week and a half later, I was on a plane to Afghanistan. A week after that, I lost 3 guys right off the bat. Had a couple more friends get killed. And then I ended up moving over to, I left the section I was in and ended up going to another section that had lost a couple of NCOs in the Kunar province. And that was when it really got hairy. But when I got back, I digress. When I got back, I'd started drinking a lot. I'd had a whole lot of loss. We lost a lot of my friends in battle that year. My mom and dad was gone. My wife had left me. She took my kid with her. And alcohol and suicide was something that was on the plate for me at the time. I'd just lost my career. I didn't have any purpose, motivation, and direction. I had nothing. I had a house, an empty house of a shell. And I was an empty shell of a man that didn't have any kind of purpose in life. And it took somebody that, from my past, that I cared a lot about, coming in and saying, you're about to make a lot of the same mistakes I did. You're going to lose your kid forever. And that was what really got me to stop doing the things I was doing, self-destructive things that I was doing, and start pushing to just build a relationship with my son and start making better decisions and changing life.
And then moving from there, that's when you started the construction side or the droning company?
Actually, I didn't go straight into that. I missed being a soldier. I missed the camaraderie. I missed everything about it. I loved being in the military. So I started doing gunsmithing. I built guns for people, went to competitions, started shooting, and I kept teaching. I started teaching kids and women, self-defense, shooting, safety, all kinds of things. Well, I mean, you've been out to the range with me.
Yeah. Remember in Arizona? You have a nice shot. Boom, boom, boom.
Well, thank you. Aim small, miss small.
There you go.
But it just kind of kept me lingering in that moment of where I was still doing something in the field of something I was already good at. So, would kind of fortuitously, Illinois passed a law and said, well, you know, you're going to have this Illinois firearm license now. And I was like, I'm not paying this communistic government anything. So I just let the licenses go, and I stopped doing gunsmithing. I still do it for myself, friends, people like that, and, you know, people, real close people. But one of my real good friends owns a construction company, and he says, hey, why don't you come work with me? He said, come check it out. So I went out and started doing carpentry work, and I had plenty of experience in it, but I was learning all kinds of stuff from him. And he's an old Marine, infantry Marine, and we got along good. And then another really good friend of mine said, hey, I've got this new product. He says, I want you to check it out. So, and I know why he wanted me to do it, because of my voice. He was like, hey, I want you to start talking about this and doing podcasts and stuff. So I got into the polyarmor side of the house. It's a membrane that we put on in commercial and industrial roofing. And while I was doing all that, I was like, well, there's another application here I can use to help look at roofs, which is thermals. Well, I'd done a lot of thermology in the military, using on the weapon systems. We use thermal imaging devices and scopes, and even on the trucks we have different kinds of thermals. So you learn a lot of thermology while you're in the military. Not to the depth that you would learn in a thermology school, but you get a really good understanding of how it works, how to use the equipment. So I bought a drone that had thermal capabilities, and I started flying all these buildings, and I realized real fast that I could actually, with the right drone, the right equipment, the right software and technology, I can actually get down to within a half of a centimeter of how much of your roof is going to have to be replaced without ever opening it up. Certain types of roofs, not all of them. So selling the actual product and using the drones, I was able to cut down on different contractors that were using the product. We were able to get rid of their change orders. They were more accurately bidding. We were speeding up the time on the job site. And we just kind of, I've got a friend of mine that had been doing reports for, he's an environmentalist. And I was like, hey, you know, we're kind of he does a lot of work inside of old commercial buildings, and I was like, we're kind of overlapping here. Why don't you and I get together and do a little collaboration? Because he was phenomenal at writing reports, and I suck at computers. So we got together and started writing these reports and going over all the data and details and started pulling everything in on all these buildings, and we ended up creating a report that is, well, with the clientele that I have now, they say it's invaluable because of everything that they get. They don't have change orders. We're really protecting the companies that are doing the work, the building owner, whoever owns that property, and the insurance company all at one time, just because we're a 100% fact-based company that puts this report together, that it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're the roofing consultant, the engineer, the roofing GC themselves, a carpenter, a plumber, an HVAC, or electric, an insurance company. Everybody that gets our report has every bit of information they get off of that one report. Covers everything.
Wow.
Not to mention the past history on that. Any permit that's ever been pulled for work done on that building or that site as a whole. And then weather reports all the way back up to 20 and to 35 years.
You guys are nationwide?
We are not completely nationwide. I don't do anything in California, Oregon, and Washington, or Utah. And I don't do anything up in the New England area.
Okay.
But yeah, everywhere else.
Nice. I know you guys are doing really well. Last time you talked to me, you were telling me things are scaling too fast, too quick was the thing, right?
That was one of the things. So infrastructure was something that I'd spent. I hadn't spent enough time on, so for the past 2.5, 3 months, just at the rate that we were growing, I've really expanded in that aspect of it. So. And
the company is called Polyarmor, if anyone wants to look it up.
No, that's the coating.
Okay.
My company is Winn Drone Solutions.
Winn Drone Solutions.
Winn Drone Solutions LLC.
Okay.
And we call it Winn Drone Solutions because we do use drones, but a lot of the equipment that we use is specialized per field, well, per section of that report. We use specialized equipment. Some of it we've actually even invented. We're working on patents and white labels to make sure that that we control that kind of data, because there's nothing else in the world like it.
That's beautiful, man. I love your story because, just in general, your overall mentality of perseverance and overcoming obstacles that one can not only imagine, less alone the human eye, want to see. And, you push forward with, that life, and then the stuff going on with, marriage, family, and all that. And then now you're running a successful business. Would you say that a lot of that character was built through your childhood, or was it something that was more learned? Or
childhood taught me that life is hard and painful. The military taught me that I've had worse, and my wife and kids taught me that there's hope for even lost souls. And
then in terms of, I guess, your childhood, would you say it was a really tough upbringing, or? It
was different, to say the least.
Do you think people nowadays, let's say you're comparing your childhood to a millennial's childhood, would you say it's a whole different, side of the coin where, are they being raised too soft, or, you hear all these stuff going on social media. What's your opinion on comparing what you had to deal with to nowadays?
That's
It's a good question.
Kids aren't allowed to make mistakes today, and everybody's really too offended. You can't. I love Stoicism.
What's
for
that?
This reason right here. Stoicism is like what Epictetus taught.
Oh.
All right. I mean, I had you.
Yeah, the Enchiridion. Yeah.
Now, 3,000 years old, so there's a few outdated things in there. But in the very first page that's in the Enchiridion, when Epictetus starts talking, is to understand what you're in control of and what you're not in control of. Internals and externals. It pretty much breaks down what should upset you, what should offend you, and what should have no effect on you at all. So everything that you're in 100% control over should never upset you or offend you, because you can change it. Everything else is called an external. So your wife, your kids, your house, your bills, your job, your vehicle, the clothes you wear, the way life goes, how your day goes. Those are externals. You have little to no control over them. So they shouldn't upset you or offend you. Because as long as you do the best that you can, that's all you can do.
And then in terms of...
So as far as kids today and parents today, let your kids make mistakes. They're going to get hurt. I mean, if it's not going to cost somebody life, limb, or eyesight, what are you really upset about? It's that simple. You're not going to go blind. You're not going to have an arm or a leg chopped off. And it's not going to kill you. So develop thicker skin.
I think that's what we're missing too, is just really having that thicker skin where you can...
Well, it's because everybody wants to feel important. It's pride and arrogance. It's the lack of accountability.
Yep.
I could fix the world with one word, it would be accountability. Just be accountable for yourself. I'm not accountable for what you do. I'm not accountable for what they do or anybody else does. All I'm accountable is for how I act, how I interact with the world around me. If somebody says something out of place or rude to me, it's my choice to either give it validity and weight or to accept the source and overlook the ignorance. It's like when somebody says something bad about me, who cares? So you don't like the way I am? You don't like the fact this has actually happened living up north? I was going outside of a gas station and I'd opened the door and I seen a lady walking up. And I stopped and tipped my hat and I said, ma'am. And she refused to go inside. She called me everything but a white boy or a gentleman.
All you did was just open the door for her?
Oh yeah, well I was a misogynist. She didn't need a man's help. Gosh. So I let the door go and I sat there and let her finish talking, and I said, well ma'am, where I'm from, chivalry isn't dead. And my mama spent almost 30 years teaching me to be this way, and that was the greatest woman I ever met in my life. So, you know, we can agree to disagree. And I kid you not, she goes, oh, I'm so sorry. You're not from around here. So I have to be from a different place to have good manners and to be polite and mannerly. Because I don't just do that for women, I do that for men as well. I'll open the door, sir, how you doing? Yep. That's just good manners. Last week, I heard actually a pretty good friend of mine, he said, you know, I don't just give respect. Respect is earned. I tell my boys all the time, and my daughter, you know, respect is earned. But being respectful earns respect. And if you just say yes ma'am and no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, may I please and thank you, you'll be surprised, especially in today's world where that's a very rare attribute to have in anybody. You'll be surprised the smiles you'll get and how many more people will be willing to just have a conversation with you. And they instantly start smiling. Of course, being up north, anytime I'm outside of Texas or Oklahoma or even Utah, I mean, it's where there's a lot of down home country folk, like really country folk. It blows people's mind. They're like, "Oh, you're not from around here." Yeah. No, I'm a Texan, bred, born, and raised. Yeah. But in Texas, you know, it's changed a lot in the past 3 years. I've noticed that not living here. When I come back, you can see a difference, but they're getting a lot of transplants in. People are moving into Texas at an exponential rate. And I am starting to see a climate shift as far as mentality goes. You're starting to see more of the climate of what I would see out in, especially around the bigger cities. The kind of mentality that I would run into in the larger cities like LA or San Francisco or even New York. And what's funny is people talk about New Yorkers being real hard and rude, but my experience is they've always been really polite to me. Chicago was a different story. They were nice to me, but the way they talked about each other was befuddling to me.
So I know you mentioned the story with, you were in Cleveland, was it? It
was Oakland.
Oakland, and then you were driving. So what was the story for anyone that hasn't heard it?
So I was on my way to visit a military buddy of mine. Okay. And I ended up in the wrong part of town at the wrong time of day. And there was a couple of young men that approached me. And they were gangbangers is what they were. But one of the youngest guys that was there, he says, man, you're a real cowboy. And he had on his bandana, and I said, well, you a real gangster? And they all kind of laugh, you know. And of course, I did it in a very charismatic way. I'm like, all right, this isn't my territory. This isn't my neighborhood. But I continued to be polite and respectful, and I got them to laugh a little bit. And of course, I don't come off as a victim. I don't get scared easy. I
don't think a lot of people would want to approach you either way. You're pretty intimidating.
Some of them guys don't
the hat
really
and the
care.
voice does it, man.
I think they could tell I was a tourist.
Okay.
But I was a polite tourist, and I was having fun with them. So I ended up hanging out with them for a little while. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, this is where I'm trying to get to. And they're like, yeah, you know, but once we get to this certain street, we can't go any further.
So the territories
I guess. I'm still not. My buddy I was going to hang. One of my buddies that grew up in that area, he was like, dude, you're one of the only guys I've ever met that's been kissed by an angel that many times. And he says, you can just get away with everything. And I'm like, nah, I don't get away with everything. I've been hit too many times to say I get away with it. But you treat people, it doesn't matter what your race, color, creed, religion, or sex is. If you treat people with respect and be respectful, it demands respect. It might be their type of respect in their own way. There was a young man I was in the military with named Dre. We called him Dre Wig. And we were at a bonfire one night hanging out, and I'd just got in the military. A very country way of living growing up. And he was like, man, you a pimp, dog. And I hit him. He called me a pimp, so I hit him. You know? And of course that stopped the party, and everybody was like, dude, funny. What in the world's wrong with you? And I was like, man, he called me a pimp. I said, I ain't no pimp. And I didn't know that was a compliment, you know, but in that culture, I guess you should say. But we ended up talking it out, and I apologized, and of course, everybody got a good laugh out of it because I was quick-tempered back then. I was a little more tempered in my youth than I am these days. But I've been around the world more than once, and I've gotten to experience a lot of different people, a lot of different ideals, a lot of different types of what people consider respect and what people don't consider respect. And I'm pretty much just kind of boil it down to the one thing I can't tolerate is just rude behavior. But everybody shows respect in their own way. But rude behavior is pretty much universal.
I agree. The way I was raised, my dad was in the Army and all that, and he was really strict with, you know, manners as well. I remember when I was a kid, if I said yes, I would get in trouble. It's yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. But, you know, I've said this to a lot of people when they say, Steven, you know, you're young, you're driven, you're very persistent in, you know, pushing forward with your objectives and your goals and become successful. You know, how do you do it? And I think it's as simple as just being respectful. It sounds really cliche, but it's the obvious truth. People want to work with someone they like for the most part, right? So if you're able to provide those manners, that education, that transparency where people, you know, they like you as a person, and then you provide value with whatever product or service you're providing with your business, you know, you're set really in life, I think.
Well, in honesty, like you kind of hit around that. Is there's a company I'm looking at getting a contract with right now. I was talking with yesterday, and they were asking what kind of capabilities we had within my company. And they wanted me to hit on a few residential things, and I said, I don't have anything to do that right now. Like I don't have a procedure, standard operating procedures in place. Now, of course, I told them real quick, I was like, I can't do that yet. I focus on commercial and industrial. Now, once I sit down with them and I find out what their specific needs are, that's one thing I really enjoy that I think I did pull from the military is I love a good puzzle, like chess.
Yeah, we're talking about that.
I love chess because there's a puzzle to it and there's a problem that I get to solve. So if you're honest about something, if you can't do something or you're not sure you can do something, if you say, I can't do that, but if you delve into it to say, what are the problems you're having? What problem do you have that I can find a solution for? And then you find an applicable solution for that. Now you've proven your worth. It might take me 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks to get something in place, and it might take me another 2 months after that to get to fine tune it, to make sure that it's perfect. And it's just because you get something, you're like, well, it's I got it. It's rough enough, but it'll work. No, you never stop tuning. You never stop doing. So you continue to learn, and that's like we were saying a minute ago, about being a leader in the military. Is I didn't dictate everything I wanted done. I would teach the basics, and then I would start having my guys run through training mission after training mission, constantly training, adapting. And whatever I was doing on day one there was things taken out and things added to on day 12. And now all the people that are on that team are working as one massive machine rather than individual cogs. So you don't dictate how it gets done, you just dictate the basics of what you need done and what the outcome needs to be. And then you constantly tweak and fix and fine tune until you get what you consider as close to perfect as possible. And that doesn't mean the fine tuning and tweaking is done. It just means right now we have a deliverable that we can hand out. But you're not done learning, and your men aren't done learning. The women that work for you aren't done learning. So you've got to, as a leader, you've got to be able to say, this is my baseline. These are my standard operating procedures. Being honest, having integrity, and saying, yes, I can, or no, I can't. That keeps you from looking bad, and it stops from holding a company up. But also being able to work as a leader. Being a leader means learning constantly. You constantly shifting. Learning. But what you're trying to do is teach your subordinates how to be a leader. You're trying to teach them the right way to be a leader. Even as experienced as I am in many things in life, there are many things I'm completely ignorant to, and I'm comfortable with that. As long as I understand that when I come up to something that I'm ignorant to, I find the best minds possible to take over and teach me. And then they take the lead. It's position over rank. So if I have, perfect example is technology, computers. When I touch computers, they burst into flames and die. Literally. We've replaced 2 because of that. I was typing and they caught on fire. So I'm not good with computers. So I found people that are geniuses and phenomenal with technology. And whenever they say something, I take it to heart and I listen. Now, if there's something I would like specifically to be done, then I will lay out within parameters of what I'm looking for. But I don't micromanage. I don't tell them how to do their job. That's the expert. I'm going to get a product and be like, okay, well, I either like this or, hey, can we make this adjustment? And then I'll pay for the services to have that adjustment made. But me personally, I'm not touching it. I'll kill it.
Yeah. So I guess if someone asked you, Eric, where do you want to be 20 years from now? What do you want to do? Where do you see yourself in the future? What do you want to do?
In 20 years from now, I'm hoping to be able to play with my grandkids, look my wife in the eyes and tell her I still love her, have a business that is successful enough that I keep my employees well compensated, keep food and clothes on their wife and kids' backs and in their mouths, and keep their bellies full, and just living a simple life. What I would consider simple life. Everybody has a different idea of simple, but simple for me is just, I want to be as good a man as possible. The best version of myself every day, and I want to see that carried on through my kids and through their actions, to see them strive to be a better person every day, to accept accountability for their actions. And I guess an easy way to put it is I just want to leave the world in a better place than it was when I got here. That's actually, that's kind of the way I look at life. While I am an entrepreneur and I do a lot of business, I try to stick, what I hold near and dear to my heart is just trying to be a good person to the people that are around me. Being in the military and being in war, and for as long as I've been out, we've buried a lot of my brothers in arms to suicide. Buried a lot of them to overdoses and drugs, and even family members that we've lost to different types of cancer and things like that. You never know what somebody's life is actually, where they're actually at in life. And you don't know who is teetering or right there on the brink of insanity or suicide. They're looking into the abyss and contemplating stepping off into it. So regardless of how busy I get every day, when I come across people, I try to project a very positive outlook on life. And one of my big things, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, is I've had worse. It doesn't matter what it is, I've always tell myself I've had worse. And there's times when things have happened to me that I haven't had worse, but it's up to that point. But I'm gonna tell myself I've had worse, because there's always somebody watching, and there's always somebody that looks up to me to make the right decision. They're waiting for my play to see how I'm gonna handle things. It might be my kids, it might be somebody that works for me, it might be a friend, it might be a friend's associate. So just by handling it as calm, cool, and collected as possible, and being a stoic, a true stoic, and polite and mannerly at the same time. Maybe when I come across people that I meet just in passing in a store or something, if you look at them and you look at them, and if they make eye contact with you and you smile and you're like, how you doing today? That might have done something for them. And I know on many occasions it has, especially doing public speaking. I've been in front of huge crowds. I think the largest crowd I spoke in front of was right at 26,000 people. And afterwards, it's surprising, like if somebody would have told me 4 years ago that I would be doing this, and doing public speaking, being an entrepreneur at the level that I'm at, doing a lot of the things that I do, I would have laughed at them. I'm like, nah, nobody wants to hear my story. Nobody cares. You're in this world all on your own. And while that is true on many levels, you are here alone. But the relationships that we build and the lives that we touch without even knowing it are astronomical. Because everybody you're around every day, how many people do you pass by here in Houston every day?
Too many to count.
Too many to count. You have an idea how many you pass every day?
A lot.
Millions? I mean, that's a million lives. Let's say you walk by 1 million people every day. That's 1 million lives that you have a chance, just by saying hi, with smiling with your eyes, smiling with your mouth, smiling with your heart and your spirit, and just touching somebody else's life. Everything else will fall into place. If you're a good person, it might take you a little longer to get where you want to be at as far as business goes, because you can always cut somebody's throat, stab somebody in the back, step on shoes, and walk on people's shoulders and heads to get to where you want to go. But when you get there and you've done that, it's a pretty lonely place to be. You have no real friends.
I agree 100%.
So take a little longer and grow organically, and be polite, be honest, be somebody that people can trust. And they will revert back to you when they need you. And just be there for them when they need you.
I agree. I remember I was having a conversation a while ago, and we were talking about, the importance and the power of words. Clearly you have a magnificent voice, which is, really awesome to have. But just voice in general and the power of words. You look at some of the world leaders, presidents, right? What do they have in common? Their public speaking skills, the way they project their message, their verbiage, terminology, and the way they're able to portray what they want to say accurately to the audience. Not just them, but if you look at, this might be a bad example, but it's a good example at the same time, is, let's say during World War II, or prior, when the rise of the Nazi came in, he was actually really good at public speaking.
He was excellent at public speaking.
Exactly. You look at people like him, for example, or Jesus as well. Jesus had the power of words, and he influenced billions.
The thing about Hitler was, not only was he a powerful speaker, but he was really good at emotional manipulation. And that's something that you've got to watch for. The devil has a silver tongue. And there's a lot of people out there that have been really good speakers. We see it today in society today, all the time, with these groups that are coming out, these far left and far right wing groups that come out. They'll get somebody that's a good speaker. And if you can hit people on an emotional level, then you can persuade them into doing what you want them to do. One of the best speakers, and one of my favorite speeches, or part of a speech, is "The Man in the Arena" by Teddy Roosevelt. that speech right there. I listened to that on my phone. You can set your phone to whatever you want it to start playing when it goes off in the morning. That's your alarm clock. I've got mine set to the Man in the Arena. Every day when my alarm goes off, it's the Man in the Arena. But what he says in that is kind of what everybody should really be doing in life. The way you should view life, the way you should view your accomplishment and your failures. It's, man, I'm telling you, you are what you eat. Mentally, physically,
What
emotionally.
you think as well.
The way you think. So you pick things out, and it's as simple as it is. That's one of the few things that I do. I do listen to, I have certain speeches that I've picked out because they meant something to me. When something was said, it had nothing to do with me, but when I listened to it, there were parts of my life that I know I need to work on. I'm my own worst critic. There's many things that I have to adapt and overcome. There's many things that I can't be ignorant to as far as looking in and reflecting. When I look in the mirror every day, there's the only opinion that will ever matter to me is what's looking back. Because if I fail myself and I can't look myself in the eyes in the mirror, then what my kids think of me are nothing. It doesn't matter what they think. But if I wake up every day and try to be the man that my wife deserves and the man that my kids believe that I already am, now I've got to measure that up to, I've got to be able to measure myself when I look in the mirror and not know. And there's some days you're going to fail, but on most days it's like I came pretty close, or I did pretty good about being the man that they deserve and the man they think I am.
Moving forward, I know we're kind of short on time, but if you were to, I guess, conclude something with, a phrase or something you'd like to really reach out to the audience, is there any last words that you want them to really understand? Aside from being respectful.
Do not allow fear of anything to dictate the way you live your life.
Do not allow fear to dictate anything around your life.
Exactly. If you don't like your position in life, you can change it. Is it going to be easy? No. Do you have the finances at the time when you want to change it? Maybe not, but you have to come up with a plan. You've got to have purpose, motivation, and direction. You've got to be firm, fair, and consistent with yourself, or you can't be with anybody else. You have to remain calm, cool, and collected in the face of adversity and danger or failure. And above all else, you have to be accountable for who you are and everything that you do.
Beautiful, brother. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so
Thanks,
much for
brother.
coming. All right, guys, thank you so much for this episode for The American Dream. Please stay tuned for the next one.